Hello, happy Crumpin' Wargamers. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jonathan Arkin, your host, and together we are going to learn how to crumple all the enemies out there. So this is a follow-up video to my previous list building video. So if you haven't watched that, go watch it. It's going to make a lot of sense to you as we're learning how to build an appropriate list for all of our wargaming needs. So it was a little bit complicated, and some people were having a little trouble implementing some of the ideas in their own list. So what I thought I would do is I would take my current list that I'm using, and I would show you exactly why and how I'm assigning the roles to my units in my list building process as I'm going to try to dominate the world of Warhammer. So let's just go ahead and jump right into it. So my army, I'm going to show you the whole thing. So what do I give up when I'm building my army? The name of my army is the Orcs of Omen, of course. I start with one command point. I am 1997 points. I give up 21 units, so grind is absolutely an option against me. I easily give up 15 points on Assassinate. I think I actually give up like 24 points on Assassinate. So that's fine with me. Bring it down, I have 11 points, and no prisoners, I give up 13 points. And Abhor the Witch for 6. This is tailored into my list. This is calculated. I understand I give up these points. The Assassinate, there's literally basically nothing I can do about it anyway if I want to run the style list I'm going to run, so I don't care. Once the Assassinate points are given up, you don't have to care about the Bring It Down anymore. You can give as much as you want because that's the same category. No Prisoners at 13 is actually pretty decent for an Orc. Normally they give up 15. And Abhor the Witch, I don't care about giving up 6 points for it. And there's really no matchup in the game where I need Abhor the Witch because Thousand Suns and Grey Knights are pretty great matchups for Orcs. Alright, so what is the list? The list is pretty dang simple. I posted this on this previous video. I'm just going to switch myself to a TTS view here so that you can really see exactly what I've got. So we're just going to move. All right. So let's kind of zoom in here. So I've got some pretty awesome units here. I'm going to start with all of my HQs. And I've got these guys organized into certain ways so we can explain it. So my war boss is going to be this man right here. He is the beast boss on Squigosaur. He is a total Chad, and he will crump everything. He has Brutal but Cunning, and he also has the Beast-Hide Mantle, so he does a lot of damage, and he's actually really hard to kill. Then I've got my Weird Boy. My Weird Boy has two really important spells, To Jump and To Warpath. To Jump is a teleport, and Warpath gives +1 attack. He also gives me the ability to add in a Warp Ritual if I ever really need it. Then I've got this Killrig, and this Killrig, we'll talk about a little more in depth in him a little bit later. But this guy is super fast. He has a 33-inch threat range on his first turn, and he's got multi-phase damage, and he's a transport. So he does an amazing work. And since he's a character, he does get to advance and charge during the Wa turn, unlike all other vehicles. Then over here, I've got a few more characters. I've got Boss Zagstruck himself. Boss Zagstruck is super fast, hits like a truck, and he's awesome. The TTS does not have a good model for him, so forgive me. That's just what I use for him. Runt Herd. He adds extra movement to all of the Gretchen, so he gives me an ability to score Get the Good Bits turn 1 on literally any map. Because, here's the deal, guys. Every single map in the entire game, mission, will have at least one objective within 8.92 inches of your deployment zone. So, Gretchen moved 5 inches, which means if they disembark 3 inches away from the battle wagon, let me show you here. I'm just going to, actually, I'll just show you on the actual map I have set up. So Gretchen only moved 5 inches. And if they move 5 inches, what happens is they can never get the good bits turn 1 if they're trying to get to this objective, which is, well, let's do this one because this is the correct one. So this objective, if you look at it, it's actually 8.92 inches away, which means with a 5-inch movement, the Gretchen can't get to it. It also means with a 5-inch movement and a disembark from the battle wagon, they still can't get to it because they can only move 5 inches, which would have them at 8 point, which would, see, if you need the 6 to get to that objective. You just need to get to that 6. So what the Runt Herd allows me to do is I can start him on the battlefield, say next to my battle wagon. And then what happens is now my Gretchen disembark 3 inches in front of my battle wagon, and then they can move 6 inches to claim the objective. Phew. And once they claim the objective, I get good bits in turn 1, which is incredibly powerful. Sorry, I just kind of messed that movement up just a little bit there. He needs to be in a slightly different position. Oh no, we have chaos. So they can move all the way to the 3-inch disembark, and then there's 6 inches to claim the objective. And when they do that, boom, you get good bits, which is awesome for scoring turn 1. Super fantastic. Okay, so next to my battle wagon, I've got my Gretchen. Then I've got a bunch of other units that I will also load into them. So I've got 2 units of knobs. They typically go inside the battle wagon, but sometimes I will put Storm Boys inside the battle wagon. Because if I want to let the Storm Boys disembark from the battle wagon, that effectively gives them a 15-inch threat range or a 21-inch threat range on the war turn. So you understand how it goes. So Storm Boys and Zagstrot coming out of the battle wagon have a huge threat range. Gretchen coming out of the battle wagon can score me a lot of victory points turns 1, and then the battle wagon is very necessary to get the knobs up the battlefield. I also always give them the 5-up Fortress on Wheels. Then over here, I've got 2 more units of Gretchen to score me secondary. I've got a unit of Beast Snagaboys to go inside the kill rig. They're OBSEC. They hit really hard. OBSEC is something that this list desperately needs, and I'll show you that once we get to the rolls. 2 units of Commandos. These guys pre-deploy. They infiltrate. They're awesome. Then I've got a unit of Kilikons with rockets. These guys are amazing threats. They can also charge on 3d6 with the stratagem, which is super important, which means they have a reliable strategic reserves charge. 1 unit of Burner Boys. Typically, I'll walk them into combat in my deployment zone to defend against like opponent's deep strikers. And then I've got a unit of Squighog Boys and a unit of Storm Boys. These guys both typically go in reserve because Squighog Boys, they move 10 inches, but they're still just a little bit too slow to go up the map. But they are amazing in strategic reserve because since they're an orc, they get to reroll charges. Which gives you approximately a 50% chance to make a 9-inch charge out of strategic reserve, which is cool. And they can also easily walk into my deployment zone to defend against enemy deep strikers. Because remember, if you're in your deployment zone, you can come in within an inch of an enemy unit if you're coming from your table edge. And then the Storm Boys typically are deep strikers, and they will just score me behind enemy lines and do lots of cool stuff like that. I just got 1 more character I didn't really talk about, or 2 more characters I didn't really talk about. I've got the Nob with Wawbanner. His job is to give +1 to hit to everything. So he'll make my Nobs with Power Claws hitting on 3s instead of 4s, and he can also make my Gretchen hit on 3s, which is super cool. Then the Nob with Smash Squig. He does multi-phase damage, and he is a complete beast. So we're just going to switch back to the PowerPoint here, and I'm going to start talking about how do I actually assign roles to all of these units. So now that we understand the way the list works, that's all the stats that you get to take a picture if you want to look through it more in depth. How do we come to this conclusion that these are the units that we need? Well, there's a certain roles in the army that need to be filled, and we talked about this a little bit in the last video, and I'll just zoom through these really quick. You need damage dealers, objective holders, secondary scoring, anti-tank, anti-infantry, disruption, support staff, distraction, alpha strike, plan B, rapid reactions, transports, and out-of-phase damage. Now, out-of-phase damage, I added that one recently. It's not necessarily, you don't need it, but it is a specific role that you might want to include in your armies if you're going to be dealing with people who are running, say, Abaddon, or your, those freaking, what are they called? Phoenix Lords. Oh my gosh, Phoenix Lords, terrifying, terrible. Satan, anything like that. All right, so the roles in my army are as follows. The Runt-Herd is going to score, he's a support, and he's going to score me secondary. Why do I classify him as this? Because this is where I didn't do in the last video, and I think this is going to be very beneficial for everyone. So why does the Runt-Herd count as support and secondary? Let me tell you. The Runt-Herd, who, let's say we're deploying from the battle wagon, and we're going to be using these Gretchen to score for turn 1. The Runt-Herd is necessary for this because he adds +1 to the movement of the Gretchen. Right? So without that, I can't score that. So he is really important for secondaries. On maps where I don't need this trick, he goes into strategic reserves, and he will score me behind me lines because it's very, very difficult to screen out a single model. It's possible, but extremely difficult. And he's only 30 points, so I don't care if he dies. And since they're going to score Assassinate on me anyway, I don't even care about giving Assassinate away on him. So he scores me secondaries, and he's very supportive because he will give my Gretchen the extra movement. That's why I put those both roles for the Runt-Herd down. Then, when we're looking at our Nob on Smash Squig, he's a damage dealer, and he does out-of-phase damage. Now, he deals a lot of damage on his charge because when he charges, he rolls 5d6, and each one of those, every dice that is a 4-up will cause a mortal wound in the charge phase. This is so important if you're fighting that phase-locked Bloodthirster. Say the phase-locked Bloodthirster has 9 wounds left at the beginning of, at the end of the shooting phase. It's like, oh crap, you can't kill him in the fight phase because he can only take 8 wounds a fight phase. Well, charge that Nob on Smash Squig, deal 1 or 2 damage on the charge phase, which is very statistically likely. Suddenly that Bloodthirster is going to die because you're going to have all the damage that's coming out in the fight phase as well. So it's super important and is very, very valuable. So I like to add that extra roll in there. So he does damage, and he does out of phase damage, more importantly. Now, the Beast Boss in Squigsaur, he has Brutal Bakun and Beastside Mantle. What roles does he serve? Well, he serves damage, objectives, and support. So why do I give him support? Well, he has a 6-inch aura of +1 to hit to all Beast Snagga units, which includes the Killrig, the Beast Snagga Boys, the Hogs, and this Nob on Smash Squig. So he actually provides a supportive aura. He also deals a crazy amount of damage. I'll go through his damage profile a little bit later, but this guy will literally kill anything he charges. That's not a Deathwing Terminator unit, more or less. As a matter of fact, he actually deals a lot of damage to even a heavy land of Votan's land fortress, which is impressive. He might not kill it on average, but he's going to cripple that thing. And then he is very hard to kill because he's always -1 damage, and he has a 5-up Fatal Fang, and he's 9 wounds, so you can look out for him. So it's really hard to get him off of an objective. Now, here's the cool thing. I'm going to switch to TTS view for you guys, because this is important for everyone to understand. When you have someone like the Beast Boss on Squigsaur, and he is standing on an objective, do you see how big this guy's base is? It's freaking massive, which means it is actually impossible for your enemy to ever touch the objective without coming within Heroic Intervention range of him. So he is really darn good for defending objectives, because if he just puts right in the middle, even if they have OBSEC, they can't take it from you without giving you a Heroic Intervention, which they don't want to do, because your guy's he's gonna smash. He's gonna smash. So I put him as a powerful objective holder as well. Even though he's not OBSEC, and no, he doesn't count as 2 models, he can very easily defend an entire objective just by himself. So he is absolutely going to be an objective holder. So let's switch back to the PowerPoint view here. There we go. All right, so as we're moving on, we have Boss Zagstruck. Zagstruck is a single model. He moves 18 inches, and he smacks really, really hard. So the role I've given him is damage and disruption, because when he moves 18 inches in the wall phase, he can get to your opponent's backfield objective and kill that MSU unit that's holding the objective. So he's going to disrupt your enemy's plans. They have to plan for how heavy this guy hits and how fast he moves. So for you, when you're constructing your list, you want to take that fast-moving individual model, and you want to say, yes, he deals damage, but probably more important than the damage he deals, he disrupts the enemy's movement plans, because they have to plan on having a hard time screening a single model that moves that fast. And then we go to my Weird Boy. My Weird Boy is one of the most important parts of the entire game plan. He is Plan B. Every army needs Plan B. Let me tell you what I mean by Plan B. Let's just switch to TTS view, because this will really demonstrate this super, super well. Let's say I'm deploying on the line, and I'm playing someone like Tau, and the Tau just draw the beads on my battle wagon, and they just blow it up turn 1. Well, crap. Suddenly I've got the vast majority of my bulk of my army that's just stuck in my deployment zone, because I have to let out all of my knobs into my deployment zone. And we'll just put them right here for right now. And then the battle wagon blows up, or doesn't blow up. Doesn't even matter. Well, now that all my battle power is back here, and my opponent is over here, how am I ever going to get to him? Because these guys only move 5 inches. Even if I advance them, they move 10 inches. I mean, they're going to get to here. It's going to take them another turn to advance them 10 inches. And even then, the next turn, they're going to move 5 and try to charge. It's not like guaranteed to get a charge into the backfield by turn 4. So what my Weird Boy gives me is he gives me the teleport spell. So I cast teleport. So after they catastrophically remove my transport in the first turn, now suddenly I'm just going to cast teleport, and 9 knobs are going to be picked up, and these bad boys are going to be dropped anywhere 9 inches away from my opponent. So they can be teleported here really easily. They can be teleported here. And remember, with orcs, they get that reroll charge, which is like a 50% charge, which is really freaking good, especially when your primary plan has been screwed up. So that Weird Boy plays a massive role for me. He is a Plan B. Back to the PowerPoint. So we talked about the Plan B. I think every army needs a Plan B. He also gives me secondaries, right? Because he can give me Warp Ritual. He also gives me support, and I add support because his other spell, Warpath, will add +1 to attack to a unit. So suddenly that Storm Boy unit is going to be having 5 attacks each in the wall, or the knobs will have 5 attacks each, plus a bonus chop attack, so like 6 attacks each. It can be wild. Gretchen, every army is going to have their obligatory troops. Well, that's not necessarily true, but in orcs for sure, you definitely want them. So they score secondaries, because a 40-point unit is going to be scoring me 15 victory points, which is insane. You can't stop the orc secondary, which is really marvelous. They hold objectives. They are very good for screening your backfield. So maybe I actually should write screening down down as well. But actually, they do a really cool job of doing distractions, because what happens is your opponent is going to see the Gretchen heat, and your opponent's going to be like, crap, that 40-point unit is going to score this guy 6 points a turn, 6 victory points a turn. So he's going to waste units shooting the Gretchen. They're just going to have to, which means that you just lost a 40-point unit to an enemy that otherwise was going to be killing your 200-point Nob units. Pretty good trade. Pretty darn good trade. So they actually are a distraction, and it's like they have to focus on. So I gave them the distraction role, I gave them the holding objective role, and I gave them the secondaries role. Typically, they'll get the good bits, and then if I need to, I can always teleport them for behind enemy lines. So the Gretchen are cool. Beast Nagas, secondaries, objective, and damage dealers. Why? The exact same reasons, right? Because they're going to be in that kill rig. The kill rig is going to run up into my enemy's face. They're going to kill it, for sure. It's going to happen. And then my Beast Snaggers are going to come out of the kill rig, and they'll be basically on the enemy's lines. They'll get a charge in. They'll score me behind enemy lines. And they actually deal a crazy amount of damage. So they are damage dealers. It's not like I'm putting a unit of tactical marines and I'm calling them damage dealers, because a unit of tactical marines is not a damage dealer. They're an objective holder. Beast Nagas are going to be damage dealers and objective holders and secondary scorers, right? Then we'll look at my commandos. Oh, my sweet, sweet commandos. Possibly the most important units in my entire army. These guys do movement blocking. They do disruption. They do alpha. If you guys have not watched my video on movement blocking and screening, please go watch that video. It is going to be so eye-opening on you on how to use infiltrators, regardless of which army you use. How do you actually use your infiltrators and your pre-deployments to really mess up your enemy's battle lines? This is what the commandos do. I would consider that movement blocking and that disruption just sweet. 2 units of 5 actually is enough to generally screen out at a enemy's entire deployment zone. Then we look at the knobs. What is the knob's role? Can the Nob score secondaries? I mean, technically, yes, because they can get me green tide or behind me lines. But that is not their job. I'm never putting Nobs in a place to score me secondaries. I'm rarely putting Nobs in a position to score me secondaries. My Nob's position is to kill. They are going to be dealing all of my damage. They're going to be anti-infantry, they're anti-tank, and they're just going to crush. That is their entire purpose. So what I put on their profile is I put damage and anti-tank, because even though technically they can score secondary, that is not their job. Then we look at the Nob with Wabanner. What is his role? His role is support. He's not meant to kill things. He's meant to be next to the Nobs to make sure that their power claws or power fists, whatever, will hit on 3s instead of on 4s. That is his entire job. He'll make sure that my Killikons can hit on 3s in melee instead of 4s. His job is to support my other units. Yes, technically he can score secondaries, but he's not in my list to score secondaries. He's in my list to support my units. I've got a unit of Burna Boys. They are a Plan B, secondary, and what I call reaction. Their job is to come in from strategic reserve and score either green tide points or behind enemy lines points. Their job is to react to my opponent. So if my opponent drops enemies into my deployment zone, they can walk in it within an inch, and they can soak up an Overwatch. They can just disrupt my entire enemy's battle lines. Similarly to the way that my cons do, but I much prefer to use my cons offensively going for my opponent's deployment zone. So I have 2 rapid reactions and strategic deployment units. So the Burna Boys, typically I'll bring them in later to defend my home field objective. Sometimes I'll use them a little more offensively. Yeah, and so that's why I use them as a plan B, right? So then I have a fast attack. I have 1 unit of 8 Storm Boys. These guys score secondaries because they are so fast, they're going to get behind main lines. They deal actually a shocking amount of damage because the Nob's going to have 4 power fist equivalent attacks, and then all the other guys are going to be at strength 6 when they charge in the wall, and they're going to have 4 attacks each. It's going to be a lot of attacks, man, like a lot. They're rapid reactions because they move 18 inches, so they can get anywhere on the battlefield to make sure they react to my opponent. And if I really, really needed them to, they could movement block, which I have used them for. Now, I don't want to use them for movement blocking, but it actually is a defined role for this unit. Same thing, all that is the same thing for the 5-mana Storm Boys, except I take damage off. The point of the 5-mana Storm Boys is not to do damage. They can probably clear, like, a minimum guardsman equivalent that's on someone's home field objective, but that's not their purpose. Their purpose is just to get me behind enemy lines or movement block. So I'm not going to write damage down, even though, yeah, technically they can punch you a little bit. it's the same thing that I was talking about with your tactical marine squad. You don't take a tactical marine squad to do damage. Their job is to hold an objective, maybe raise banners. All right, Squig Hog Boys. Squig Hog Boys have two roles. They deal damage and they movement block. I am debating changing this a little bit because I might actually start dropping them in strategic reserves as well and using them as a rapid reactions unit because they can very easily come in my deployment zone and actually do a lot of damage in melee if they get someone nasty in my deployment zone. So I'm debating changing that. But for right now, I still have just damage and movement blocking on it. Once again, yes, technically they can score secondaries. They could always get behind me in line. They can contribute to Green Tide, but that's not their role. So I'm not writing that down next to their units. So you don't write down all the things that your unit possibly can do. What you want to write down for your utility roles is what does your unit do? Not possibly do, what does it do? What is its purpose? The Battle Wagon with Death Roll and Fortress on Wheels, I have damage, transport, movement blocking, and rapid reactions. Why do I have all of that? Well, I'm just going to switch to the TTS view so that I can demonstrate this for you. And we're back to the TTS now. So this battle wagon, he's a transport. So say all my knobs are inside the battle wagon turn 1, and I need to get them to my opponent. Well, turn 1, I'm just going to advance it. He moves 12. Let's say he rolls a 3, so he goes 15. So he'll go 12, and then 1, 2, 3. Cool. So then he's right here. So in my next turn, my knobs can get out 3 inches in front, advance and charge anywhere they want to go. So he's a transport. He delivers the crap out of my units. He deals a lot of damage because of his Death Roller. He's got 7 attacks in the wall, hitting on 2s, strength 10, AP 2, damage 2. That's actually good. That means that it's going to be hard to wrap him. So if the enemy tries to wrap him, I mean, he's going to kill a lot of the guys who are wrapping him, unless you're wrapping him with Terminators, which, I mean, if Terminators are wrapping him, you're kind of screwed anyway. So that's his role. He deals a lot of damage, and then he movement blocks. Why does he movement block? Well, look at this. Say I put him right here. It is impossible for your enemy to move cavalry through here now, because cavalry can't move here without passing within an inch of my battle wagon. Let me just bring this down so you can see. It's really impossible to actually go through here without coming within an inch of him. So he blocks the entire center of movement. Obviously, yes, infantry soldiers can go through, but that's pretty cool, right? He also blocks line of sight. So if you're trying to shoot these Gretchen right here, you're going to have to shoot them from over here. You can't shoot them from this direction because they're blocked by this battle wagon or from this ruin, which is pretty dang cool. So he serves a plethora of purposes. And one little trick, just for you guys who are watching, Orcs have a stratagem called Careen, which means if your vehicle explodes, say I advance this guy 15 inches up and then they blow him up in their turn, and on a 6 up he explodes, well, I'm going to spend 1 CP to make him move 6 inches. So he'll move 6 inches here. He'll blow up. He'll hit all of the enemies, and then I'll just deploy all of my knobs, hopefully out of line of sight right here. Because you can move him to give yourself a better dismount. And if you really need to, you can spend 2 CP or another CP to make them emergency disembark 6 inches away. But yeah, so that's a really cool little strategy he has. So he's got a little bit of funky things. All right, so I'm gonna go back to the PowerPoint now, and we're gonna start wrapping this bad boy up. Okay. All right, so then we've got the Kilocons with rockets. These guys deal crazy damage. They're rapid reactions because they're always in strategic reserve. They can movement block because their bases are huge. They're scoring secondaries, they're anti-tank, and they're out of phase damage. All right, I gave these dudes a lot of rolls. Why did I put a lot of rolls for these guys? Because they are an exceptionally flexible unit. They're basically the only source of semi-reliable orc shooting because they're all going to have D3, Strength 8, AP2 damage, 3 shots, so they can clear Terminators, hitting on 4s instead of the typical orc 5. They're rapid reactions because they always strategic reserve. Always, always, always. You're never going to start these on the battlefield top. They move block because they're huge bases, and I do use these guys for movement blocking. They score secondaries because their entire purpose is kind of to come into your opponent's deployment zone, make a charge, and screw them up. And they're going to get behind me lines. They are one of the sources of anti-tank because they're going to be strength 8 in melee with AP3 damage 3. They're anti-tank. And they do out the phase damage because for 2 CP, the orcs have a ram and speed stratagem to let you charge on 3d6, which is not drop the lowest, it's actually charge on 3d6. So as long as you're within 12 inches, I mean, technically you can charge 18 inches, which is pretty amazing. They're so flexible, and they I use them for so many different purposes. That's why they get this many keywords. Then I have finally my kill rig with the squig high tires and get bones. This guy has a lot of keywords or utility roles as well, for very much the similar reason as the cons. He just does so dang much. When you're building your list, you need to look for these units. Every army has a few of these. Most of your armies are always going to be full of people who serve maybe 2 roles, but you're going to have a few standout key units that can serve everything. So the kill rig, just like the battle wagon, is a transport. He deals a lot of damage, actually. He deals multi-phase damage because he has psychic, he has shooting, and he has melee. He's huge, so he movement blocks all the time. He's an alpha strike source. This is rare. He's an alpha strike source because of the upgrades I gave him, the squig high tires. He gets an additional 1 blip of movement and additional 2 for his advances. So he has a 33-inch threat range. Let me go to the TTS view so I can really demonstrate exactly what 33 inches is. All right, so I'm just going to move all these guys right here. I'm going to pop my kill rig right here. Let's move this. So, we'll put them right here. So this kill rig has 33 inches. What does that mean, guys? That means that if my enemy, say my enemy is this Beast Boss and Squigosaur, is deployed and he's got a guy in the line, and we have a guy on the line. I go first. If I want to, I can touch this guy turn 1 easily, even though he's going to have to sacrifice some movement to go through these buildings. Let me show you how that works. He has a movement of 12, but he has +1 because of the upgrade I gave him, so he moves 13. Then for orcs, we can call the wall. And since he's a character, he actually gets to benefit from it even though he's a vehicle. And when you use the Wa, you get to advance and charge with core and characters. So he gets to advance. From here, we just roll our little advance die. And whatever it says, we'll add 2 to it. So he rolls a 4. But since he's got that upgrade, he gets to add 2 to that. So he rolls a 4, which means he advances 6. So he's going to go 6 inches. Cool. Now we have an 8-inch charge. Now an 8-inch charge typically is like, what is it, like a 43% chance of scoring it? But orcs get to reroll, which takes it to like a 70% chance. But he is a vehicle as well, which means he can do a 3d6 charge for 2 CP. So if you do a 3d6 charge rerollable at an 8 inches, it's like a 99% chance of succeeding. So he's going to go on in with his, I don't know, maybe even an 18-inch charge. He's going to be into their deployment zone. He's going to deal mortal wounds on the charge, and he's going to do a lot of damage. So this guy can come from here to here very easily in 1 turn. He is an Alpha Strike Beast. All right, so as we're wrapping it up here, we'll just finish these last few slides. Hopefully that was super beneficial for you guys. So how does this army play on the tabletop? Well, it's going to get me good bits. Every now and then, occasionally, I might take banners. The only time I really take banners is against armies with significant out-of-line-of-sight shooting, such as Guard, because they might just pound all my Gretchen, and then I won't get good bits because they'll kill all my Gretchen. So it's possible I'll take banners. I've done that literally twice, though. So they're almost always going to get good bits. So I want you guys to define this the same for whatever faction you're playing, okay? Then the next secondaries that I always want to play into for this particular army is behind enemy lines, because I have a deep strike unit, and I've got a lot of strategic reserves, and then I have a lot of very fast units. So it's easy for me to get to the opponent's deployment zone, even if he's screening me. So behind enemy lines is a really good choice for me. And then I also sometimes will go Green Tide, and I'll go Green Tide on really long deployment maps where there's a lot of distance in no man's land. And it's easy to screen out. So like Recover the Relics comes to mind as one where I'll go Green Tide. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have the one secondary you know you're going to take. Then you want a secondary that you really want to take, but occasionally you'll have a backup. And then the third secondary is typically tough. Some armies are blessed, but it's typically tough. But for me, I use a kill secondary, which is always going to be Assassinate, Bring It Down, no prisoners. Never grind. I would choose Stomp 'em Good, which is the orc specific, which is basically grind them down, but only for melee. And then if I don't have an army that gives me any good kill secondaries, take Custodes, which is my second army, right? I know with Custodes, I give up 9 on no prisoners, and then I give up 7 or 8 on, or I'm sorry, I give up 9 on Assassinate and 7 or 8 on No Prisoners. So it's like, well, then I can take Warp Ritual if there's no good target because I have 2 Psychers, right? So that's it. That is how it goes. Just the last few thing I want to pick out is these key units. I went really in depth on the Kill Rig already, so we don't have to mention him. The Beast on Squegosaur, his damage with his brutal but cunning guys, oh, he's going to pick up 10 Marines. So you have a full Interceptor strike squad or Interceptor squad of Grey Knights that come at you. He'll pick the whole squad up on average, easily. He'll kill if you're not Deathwing, he'll kill 7 out of 10 Terminators. If you are Deathwing, he'll kill maybe 3 or 4, which is still pretty dang solid. Knobs, these guys are so critical to the entire game plan because they deal a crazy amount of damage. One unit of these knobs is going to pick up 6 to 7 Deathwing Terminators when they're buffed up with +1 attack from Warpath and Exploding 5s, which is a 2 CP stratagem. And I have them hitting on 3s because they're always going to be next to my knob on Wa Banner. With Outbust, they're still going to kill half a unit of Deathwing Terminators, which is extremely important. So I use Deathwing Terminators because they're widely accepted to be one of the hardest units to shift, as the example, just so you know how hard they hit. So these are my key units that I use to deal damage with. The Kill Rig is my key unit to disrupt the enemy's battle line, to deposit OBSEC, and stuff like that. And then finally, I have my Commandos, which that's an entire video that I've already done that you really need to go watch. That's on movement blocking and screening it. It'll really show you exactly how damaging, how amazing it is. So building your list, guys. This is my logic. This is how I walk through how to actually assign these roles. It's not always about everything that unit can do. It's about everything that unit is meant to do. Gretchen technically can deal damage, but they're not damage dealers, right? That's just the way it works. Okay, so go through your list, build it this way, assign these roles. If you're missing any of these roles, you got to start your list over. Then, as soon as you've got your list built, you need to make sure that you have your secondaries. I actually recommend writing my secondaries down first, and then I build my list around the secondaries. This is how I made this list, which I'm really, really happy with right now. I highly recommend you guys do the same. If you have any comments or questions, please type them down, and I will absolutely respond. I get a lot of ideas for new videos from you guys in the comment section, so please write them down. Hopefully, I have earned your subscription today, and I really appreciate you all. Until next time, happy Crumpin' Wargamers and have an amazing, amazing day.